Thanks again, everyone, for coming. We'll just wait a couple more minutes, just after 6 o'clock, till we begin formally. My name is Dan Hendry, and I'll say it again after 6 as others come in. I work with the Engineering Environment Division with Odessa Township, and we do appreciate you taking the time out of your busy evening. We'll just be a couple more minutes as just after dinner time and allow others to come in. This video will be recorded as well, mostly so we can put up online, just so the questions that you might have or the information that others couldn't have made tonight, they're able to get. So if you don't mind just sitting back for about 2 more minutes, I'll kick it off again, and my colleague Joe Gratton will be able to take us through this project that will be happening in Odessa West. So just 1 or 2 more minutes, if you don't mind, just letting others file in as we're seeing others come in, and we'll begin in a minute here. For those just entering we are recording this session so we can post it live or online later for others that weren't able to make it. It won't be a long presentation, but it'll go over what is prepared to date and the plans for the improvements in the Odessa West area. And my colleague Joe Gratton will be taking us through a PowerPoint in a couple of minutes here. We will start maybe at 6:02, again, just knowing what it's like right after dinner and getting everyone in. So just 1 or 2 more minutes here and we'll get going. Perfect. As we see a couple more people file in, I will start just being mindful of everyone that took the time to make it here tonight. I thank you again for taking time into your busy schedule. My name is Dan Hendry. I work with Odessa Township in the Engineering and the Environment Division. And tonight we'll be doing a short virtual information session on the improvements of the Odessa West water, stormwater, and drainage and road improvements happening or coming up. My colleague Joe Gratton will take us through the project plan, and he's definitely more of a technical expert than myself. Just so everyone knows out there, this is being recorded so we can put it on the website for those that couldn't make it. If you do have questions throughout the session, it won't be a long presentation. It was mostly about getting everything there and so we can get some good Q&A and even follow up if you have more specific questions to your residents. It is being recorded. Q&As you'll see in the Zoom feature, you should be able to write down at the bottom. We also have our emails online. And again, maybe as the questions come in, I'll be able to interject and get them to Joe, if not right at the end. But with that being said, Joe, take it away, Joe.
Awesome. Thank you very much for the introduction, Dan. Hopefully everybody can see and I'm sharing my screen correctly. So yeah, as Dan said, welcome to the public information session. What we're going to cover in the next probably 10 minutes or so, 15 minutes, depending on how many questions there are, is a bit of background on the project, some key dates, what the project scope is, some of the construction details or what the work's going to look like on the street, what's going to happen or what to expect to happen during construction, if there's any specific project concerns, and then finally an opportunity to ask some questions and interact with us. Again, as Dan had mentioned, if you can put the questions in the chat, and then we can make sure that none of them are missed. But feel free to ask questions at any time. So a bit of background on the project. So the road infrastructure has reached the end of its service life. So anybody who lives in the neighborhood knows the roads are starting to get a little bit rough. And we've been working on this project for several years as we try and come up with what the best plan is to do the reconstruction work here. One of the big concerns that we're looking to address is the area has poor drainage and there's not a very good outlet for the water. So with Millhaven Creek being so high compared to the elevation of Bridge Street, a lot of times there's no good way for the water to get away, which causes problems both for the road and property owners. There's been a few water main breaks and some water valve issues that we're also looking to address. And then obviously at the same time, the road does need to be reconstructed. So this is a good opportunity to do all this work at the same time. So some key dates for the project that, well, we're hoping is the tender will close in the spring of 2023 with an estimated start date, I would say spring, summer 2023. The project, we're going to tender it with 2 phases. Phase 1 would be complete December 2023. The contractor would shut down over the winter, and then phase 2 would be complete in December 2024. We are trying to be a bit flexible with what work is completed in what year. We find the more flexibility we provide to contractors when they're bidding, we tend to get a more competitive price as they can better fit the work into existing schedules. So it's a bit more competition, and the idea is to get better pricing. We do have one section that we will have as a must-have that they must complete, and then it'd be up to the contractor to determine which streets or which roads fit best into their schedule. So we would anticipate having Bridge Street completed as far as from the mill to Emma Street, and Emma Street in 2023. And anything else could be either 2023 or 2024, depending on what the successful contractor decides. So the project scope. So the upgrades include Battery Street, Emma Street, Cross, South, Bridge Street. In the design documents, you will see work for West Street. However, the work on West Street is going to be completed in conjunction with another project. However, we do want to make sure the design works with everything else that we have planned. And it is going to be a multi-year construction project just because of the large number of streets and the volume of work that's being done. And we're anticipating the construction budget for all of the work to be approximately $4 million. So project, the actual work that's going to be done. So it's full replacement of all the water main within the project area. There's some replacement of the sanitary main, and there's a new storm sewer. So the new storm sewer is going to run up Bridge Street as far as South Street, and then up South Street as far as Cross Street. The sanitary main replacement is due mainly as part of the work we're reconfiguring the water and sanitary mains to achieve a better configuration for them. So it's not that there's something specifically wrong with the sanitary main. However, as part of the overall project, it makes for a better fit. We'll also be doing ditch reinstatement, new driveway culverts, and a new asphalt service. So some areas, as you'll see in future slides, are going to have a ditch section. Some areas will have ditch on one side, curb on the other, and some areas will have curb, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. And then the goal for all of this work is fewer service interruptions, so water and sewer function as they should. The main reason we undertook the project and what we're really hoping to achieve is improved right-of-way drainage, and the add-on effect of that is it should provide an opportunity for improved drainage for property owners as well. Then obviously we're going to do upgrades to the road base and new asphalt to make sure that everything is back to as it should be. And the updated water, sewer, storm infrastructure will provide reliable service for years to come. So there are some construction drawings. We are still going through the revision phase, but as soon as they're complete, they'll be posted to loyalist.ca/Odessa West, and you can have a better, closer look. Construction drawings, unfortunately, don't present well in this type of format, and it's something that's easier if you can just go to the website and download them. So this is what some of the different cross sections that we have planned within the project area. So depending on where your property is, this is what the road will look like. A number of factors were used to determine which cross section is used in which location. Depending on what the width of the existing right-of-way is. So anybody who lives in the area knows obviously that some of the roads are quite narrow and some of the houses are quite close to the road, so obviously that limits what we can do. We want to make sure we're maintaining the existing road elevations because we don't want to obviously make the drainage issues worse. We want to improve localized drainage throughout the project area. Some of the reconfiguration with the availability of storm sewer, it makes more sense to do the road this way. And then the anticipated traffic within the project area also determines what the road configuration will look like. So some sections, so as a ditch, a traditional ditch section. So the streets planned for this include Bridge Street from the mill to the south of Emma, Cross Street from Emma to south, and Battery Street. So a ditch cross section includes a ditch that's constructed to below the level of the road granulars. We aim to have 3-to-1 side slopes where possible. However, in some instances, this is not achievable depending on how much room we have within the roadway. The width of the road varies depending on the existing right-of-way. So Bridge Street, for example, is a fairly wide road, so that would be one of the larger cross sections. I believe Cross Street is a bit narrower, so obviously the width of the driving lanes would be a bit narrower there. Same for the shoulder. It varies depending on the right-of-way that's available as we try and fit the ditch and the road within the cross section. And then the final thing is the asphalt thickness depends on the anticipated traffic for that section. So for example, this cross section is showing 2 lifts of asphalt. Some of the other side streets only have 1 lift of asphalt because they don't have the same traffic volume. So then we have a ditch and curb section. So obviously the ditch stuff is all the same as on the previous slide. However, because of either right-of-way issues, the way some of the properties are configured, or because there's storm sewer, we have what we call semi-mountable curb on one side. So that's the type of curb that it's a bit steeper than what you would see at a driveway draw, but traditionally in new subdivisions, this is the type of curb you would see. Streets planned for this is Bridge Street from Emma to Battery. And yeah, that's basically the same configuration as the ditch, except on the one side there's curb and subdrain. And then the last section is a full curb section. So streets planned for this work include Bridge Street from Battery up to Main, Cross Street from Main to Battery, South Street, West Street, and West Street's going to be completed with future Main Street work. So this just has concrete curb and gutter on both sides of the road. And again, as we talked, the width varies depending on how much right-of-way is there. And again, the asphalt thickness depends on the anticipated traffic. Part of the reason in some cases for the curb is because the roadway right-of-way is not wide enough to permit full ditches because they require an additional 6 meters or so of roadway. So some potential project concerns as the construction is going on. So delays in traffic control. So it's anticipated the contractor will keep 1 lane open at all times. However, there may be times during the project where there will only be access to a property from one direction. So depending on where you live, you may have to take, I don't know, say if you're on Bridge Street, you may have to take Cross and Emma Street around to get to your property or something like that. Township staff will work to communicate these closures as much in advance, and the contractor will have flagmen and whatnot employed to control traffic on the site. Township staff also keep emergency services informed and make sure they're aware of any changes to traffic or access in the event there's emergency, so there's no delay in a response. Dust and poor road conditions. Unfortunately, it is construction and road conditions will be poor at times. However, the contractor is expected to keep the road open and suitable for traffic. They will be required to use dust suppressant to help reduce the dust created during the project. Open excavation. So obviously, as they're installing the buried infrastructure, there'll be excavations. These are required to be fenced, and the contractor has an obligation to keep the site safe. However, keep in mind it is an active construction site. And then access to your individual properties. So the contractor will be required to maintain access to all driveways. However, circumstances may cause temporary access restrictions. So if this is to occur, the contractor will make sure they contact affected residents individually to plan for any closures and make every attempt to accommodate special circumstances. So if, for example, you're an individual with accessibility issues and you need to have vehicle access to your door, we can arrange some sort of temporary access as they're replacing the culvert at the end of your driveway, for example. Trees. So depending on the distance from buried infrastructure, so this would be your valves, the pipes, the water shut off on your lawn, it may be necessary to remove trees that could be damaged as part of the work. So any tree that's removed, we have a policy, we will replace the tree. However, I will be perfectly honest, the trees I replace often don't match the 20 or 30-year-old tree that was existing, but we do provide a replacement tree, and we are somewhat flexible if there's a certain type of tree you want, provided it's a reasonably common species and not something exotic that we can't get. Grassed areas will be reinstated with hydro seed. Some of the reasons for going with hydro seed is it's very cost effective. So hydro seed costs 1/10 the cost of sod. It's easier to care for as it's grown in place as opposed to a transplanted product. It tends to match better with existing as it grows in. However, it does take longer to grow, and there are some challenges with erosion, but these will be managed during the project. If you have specific landscape features on your property, such as head walls or curb, anything that needs to be removed for the construction will not be reinstated. Fences, things like that, shrubs, bushes, the contractor has an obligation, but we don't replace head walls around the end of culverts, and we don't bring curb out to the road. If you have a specific concern to your property, we can discuss with individual property owners what might be required for their particular situation, or if there's a requirement, you can move ahead of construction to remove something that you need. If you are in this situation, the best thing to do would be contact myself, and we can arrange to meet on site and go through things. One thing that's not on the slide is if anybody has an in-ground irrigation system, if that could also be brought to our attention, you would be responsible to remove any portion that would be within the township right of way for the work, just so it doesn't get damaged. So what to expect during construction. So one thing I do want to highlight is there will be temporary pipes used to provide water to residents during construction. This involves the placement of plastic pipes across the front of your property, and will involve temporary ramping, constructed granular material in your driveways. When you see these pipes, please be careful when you're driving over them, just to make sure they're not damaged, as all of the water to yourself and your neighbors are being supplied through these temporary pipes, and we want to make sure that there aren't any issues. If you do notice an issue with the pipes, please contact myself or someone from the contact information right away, just so we can make sure we address it. So during the project, we generally have township staff on site, I'll say 90% of the time, and we'll also provide all their contact information and whatnot. So if there are any concerns at any time during the project, if you seek out one of the township staff, we'll do what we can to make sure that we have it addressed by the contractor, and make sure your concerns are heard. Typically, township staff will be wearing obviously the safety equipment and white hard hats. There will also be an information letter sent around at the start of construction, and that will have my contact information, the other township staff who will be on site, their contact information. It will also have the contractor's contact information. If you do have a concern for fastest response, please contact us using the information in the letter. The township has a variety of ways that you can reach out to us via report a concern, calling the office, calling, or some of our online social media. However, the fastest response you will get is if you use one of the telephone numbers or contact info in the letter, as that will go directly to people involved in the project and we'll be able to assist a little bit quicker. But if for whatever reason you need to use one of the other methods, that also works. We'll try and get it resolved as quickly as possible. I probably got talking a little bit quickly. However, that's essentially the presentation. I think there are a few questions and answers. If not, you can email them. You can add them in the chat. I don't know how else you can do questions, but you can also, at a later date, or if you're watching this as it's been recorded, certainly email myself or call the number below, and I'll get back to you as quickly as I can.
Thanks so much, Joe. We'll open it up. I haven't seen any questions come in, but that was a great overview. And being an evergreen piece, meaning we will have it online. Hopefully other eyes are able to see it if they weren't able to make it tonight. So we'll just wait a minute here or see if anything pops into the Q&A. And I don't see anything, Joe, but as Joe mentioned, everyone, thanks again for taking the time out of your evening to watch this. We will remind you as well, there's a project email specific to the Odessa West project, and you can sign up for that email list that is only for the Odessa West project. So it won't be any other types of information, but you can have a direct email sign up for the Odessa West email list, which you can find online. I'd like to remind people that the construction drawings will be posted there in the next, I think, week and a bit, as we're updating the website with this webinar, as you're going to be seeing it, and other information available for the project. And lastly, I'd just like to remind people to reach out to Joe with his information here, to help plan and protect your own property. So if you live in Odessa West, providing us with information about any private underground service can go a great deal and a great way to help make sure that we do the best planning around that. But I'd like to thank you, Joe, for taking the time. It was a great overview. Thank you, everyone, for attending. And yeah, sign up for that email. I think it's a great way. And there's Joe's contact right there. And thanks again for taking the time this evening. Have a great evening.
Thank you, everybody.